will the team be able to root?
It's actually kind of an annual trip up to Toronto for the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies, and I'm always hoping there's a game in Rochester on the way up to make the trip up, and I'm sure there is again. So nothing specific here, just coming to enjoy the game and work my way up to Toronto.
Obviously, the biggest thing right now is where Las Vegas will put their affiliate.
Yeah.
Is there any talk or decisions or anything like that going on?
There's a lot of talk, a lot of negotiations, lots of discussions, but no final decision as yet. I expect within the next few weeks we'll have a better idea of where they're looking to go with their affiliation and how that will be structured, and that will then open the door for us to move forward with some markets that have shown a strong interest in being the 31st franchise in the league.
Their preference would be to stay west, I would assume.
Well, that kind of remains to be seen. I think they're looking for the right situation. It's, for an expansion team in the NHL, with the draft rules that they have, they're going to have a kind of a unique situation for the first 2 or 3 years relative to the number of young players that they have. So to assume that they will fit exactly into the typical affiliation deal or typical ownership deal in our league is probably a stretch. But I think it'll work out. I think we'll be at 31 teams next year, and we just have to let this sort of run its course and make sure that Las Vegas finds themselves in a situation that they feel comfortable with in the American League, and then we can react accordingly. But I think it's fair to assume that we will be at 31 teams next year.
What are the biggest challenges or concerns facing the AHL right now?
Well, that's a good question. I'd like to think that we're in a pretty good place. We've gone through a lot of change, as you know, over the last couple of years, expanding out to California and down into Arizona this season, and changed our footprint quite a bit. I think we've taken a lot of forward steps with the league in the last few years, and I'm hopeful that we're kind of stabilizing. So expansion is certainly one of them that we just discussed. We're looking at our schedule length as well, and we're kind of polling our clubs right now to look at what our schedule length might look like next season. Other than that, we're pretty pleased with how things are going. We're off to a great start.
Is the Western Conference still playing fewer games this season than last, and how did that work out?
Well, it's not really the Western Conference. It's the 5 teams in California, and the 6th team in Tucson are playing a 68-game schedule. The other 24 clubs are playing a 76-game schedule, and surprisingly, as weird as it sounds and as weird as it looks, we're not getting a whole lot of pushback from either our clubs or from our fans relative to how that's working. So it works well for those West Coast teams for a number of reasons, not the least of which is travel. For the rest of our clubs, they're kind of looking at whether they'd like to reduce the schedule a little bit or not. I don't think as far as 68.
There's no concern about competitive balance in terms of playoff qualification for that balance?
No, there really hasn't been. It's interesting last year, and in us getting out to spin, we're not getting a lot of pushback on that. And last year, when you looked at it from sort of Christmas on, everybody played almost the same number of games, so that variance between the 68 and 76 seemed to happen early in the season. Whether that's the case again this year or not, I'm not sure, but we're really not feeling as though our clubs feel like that's a tremendous disadvantage to them when it's spread over 7 or 8 months.
With a lot of NHL clubs having their AHL affiliate being moved closer to them, how does the Buffalo-Rochester dynamic fit into that view? Are they like an archetype for other clubs in the NHL?
Yeah, they were about 30 years ahead of their time. I mean, clearly the relationship between Buffalo and Rochester, other than in a period of time where they broke up a little bit and got back together, I think has been one that almost every NHL team would have liked to have with their AHL club for a whole lot of reasons. All of the ones that you have here, which is first of all the proximity of the players to move back and forth, and in a cap situation that you have now in the NHL, it makes a big difference to be able to move those players and those salaries back and forth in a timely fashion. But I think bigger than that is just the synergy of growing the sport in the region, and I think the Sabres and Amherst have for so many years have grown the sport in this part of New York State, and been part of the history of the game. So I think we're moving in that direction, and we have been. Almost every move we've made in the last 3 or 4 years, and there's been a lot of them. I think we've had 11 or 12 moves have been directly tied to bringing NHL clubs closer to their affiliates. And the only one right now that really stands out as not being there is Utica in Vancouver. And both the Utica group and the Vancouver group seem comfortable with the way it is. And so I don't see any change coming there for in the near future for sure.
I know the league has been the experiment for shootout, 3-on-3, various other things. Anything on the horizon for that?
No, I guess the one thing that we've done this year was to try to further curb certain types of fighting, and I think that's remains to be seen how that plays out for us this year. It wasn't an experiment; it was a reaction to what we felt was an overabundance of fighting in our league relative to the NHL, and that the type of fights and the type of people involved, and the fact that we just felt it needed to be curbed. And we'll see how the impact of the rule is this year, but. I think we feel good about it, and I think our Players Association feels good about it, and we haven't had a lot of pushback on that idea either.
And about now is when you start talking about possibilities for next year. You probably can't share anything specific yet, but others talked about anything being experimented with for next year.
No, not really, and we haven't really. I know it looks that way if you look historically that we've experimented with rules. I think one year we did experiment with some rules for the NHL during one of the lockouts, but generally speaking, when you see rule changes in our league, it's because we believe it's the right thing to do for our league, and if it turns out to be something that resonates with the NHL, it moves in. And it's like 3-on-3 overtime. It's not something the NHL came to us and asked us to test. Now, virtually every NHL media member thinks that's the way it works, but it didn't. Our board felt it was a good thing to do. We put it in front of them as an idea, and it caught on. So that's great. But we'll do. We have done over the years. Anytime the NHL has asked us to take a look at something, if we felt it would help the game, help our relationship with the NHL, and not impede the integrity of our competition, we've been willing to do it.
And I know the goal was, I'm not sure if you're there, that every game 2 referee system. Are we there yet?
We're not there yet, but we're certainly well on the way. Every year we're having more games. We have a contract now with the NHL, which will see us get to the full 2-man system, 2-referee system, I think within the next 2 years, 2 or 3 years. But we're up to, I think we're at 820 games this year out of 11 something that we'll have 2 referees, so we're getting closer every year. It's not as I've said for many years, and it really isn't a financial issue for us. It's the shortage of qualified referees, and as more and more referees become qualified to work in our league, we'll get closer to that schedule.
Any talk about raising the draft age from 18 to 19 because of junior players, if they don't make the NHL team, by rule have to go back to their junior club rather than coming to their AHL affiliate?
It's funny, there's a lot of discussion about that in the media. Of course, the NHL draft age is not something that the American Hockey League is responsible for. I have been involved in some discussions with the NHL and with other organizations in hockey, including junior hockey and college hockey, about the future of our game and about player development, but it's really been kind of theoretical discussions at this point, so nothing on the horizon. The one thing that I do believe is the arrangement between the NHL and Canadian Major Junior Hockey League relative to players going back to junior if they have junior eligibility is one that exists for a reason, and I think the reason is to protect the bigger picture player development model in Canada. For us to get 3 or 4 players who are underage coming into our league, even though they would be great players, it's not going to change the fabric of our league. So it comes down to a philosophical question for the NHL and the juniors, and that is it more important for that 1 or 2 or 3 players that might better fit in the American League rather than going back to that last year junior? Is it more important to do that, or is it more important to protect the business model and the hockey development model with junior hockey? And that is a decision that we have nothing to do with and really don't have a position on.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.